Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turf's Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone show this evening. A great afternoon for everybody listening into the Water Zone. We appreciate it. And just for that, we got rain going on, so we're creating water here, and we're happy about that. And so if you're anywhere in the world and you're listening to us, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. Anyway, I'm Rob Starr, along with the illustrious Mr. Chris Davey. He's the genius behind hydraulic engineering and best co-host we got going. So how you doing, Chris?
Great, buddy. Thank you very much, and you're welcome for the rain. I sent it to you just special for you, Rob. We just ended this cold storm that came down, March storm that came down, and it's very cold. I mean, for Southern California, it's like in the mid-40s right now outside and very windy, but there are puffy white clouds in the blue sky, so the storm is past. And in your backyard. Well,
I also heard today on the news, radio news, is that north of me in Flagstaff and Williams by the Grand Canyon, it's going to snow and be in the low 30s.
Yes, well, it was a present for you, Rob, so don't say, hey, Southern California, the weather you sent us is here, you need to come and get it.
You got it. So anything else new in California with the heavy rains? Is it the El Nino that's hitting?
I think we have a La Nina right now, but I tell you what, right on the phone with us, we have an expert who can weigh in on the El Nino, La Nina story. Chris Austin.
Yes. Hey, how's it going?
We're doing good. And we got to give you a new title of the weather maven.
No,
the water maven.
No, I'll just stay with Maven. Thank you very much. The weather, boy, that's tough stuff. I mean, that was the hardest unit in physical geography, I remember, just trying to grasp. So, yeah, tricky stuff. No, we're getting some nice atmospheric rivers coming in and kind of doing what they do. Up here in Northern California, it hasn't been too bad. We have plenty of rain, and we just had a little downpour just now. And we have lots of reservoirs to catch it, and so things are going pretty good, not flooding. And I know they've been getting quite a bit of rain down in Southern California, and it is affecting some of the burn scars. So, we'll see what happens. Hopefully nothing too bad in Southern California.
I don't think it's been, sorry, Rob, I don't think it's been too bad, Chris. But we'll get the roundup on the news tonight when we watch the local news and see what happened, especially for the Palisades fire burn area and the Eaton fire burn area. Eaton, if they're like us, which they are very similar, just about 20 miles to our west, probably got the same, 2.5 to 2.75 inches of rain overnight.
Yeah, and another question will be, all the toxic runoff that will now be flowing around too.
Exactly.
That goes into the ocean. So some really kind of nasty stuff there. And there was a story this morning in the New York Times about how the air even has just a lot of chemicals just in the air. Really specifically in the burn areas, and they've been doing some pollution testing of the air, and they do find it goes beyond the fire areas out about a mile, but it's not like the entire basin is getting these chemicals. But around the burn areas, there's still a lot of chemicals being, going into the air there. So they'll be studying the health impacts of these fires for quite some time.
Are the beaches still closed? I know people like to take their pets and walk on the beach, but I wouldn't do that now. Are they open? Are they closed?
Yeah, they're closed, buddy. All the way from north of Malibu all the way down to where the breakwater starts in Long Beach Harbor. Wow. And that's it. South of that, as far as I know, it's okay. The beaches are good.
Yeah, there's a lot of nasty stuff in the water, and they have been asking for people to stay out, definitely in the Malibu and those other areas. Now, people sometimes do what they do in Southern California, but you would not really want to be in that water with all that stuff in it.
Oh, you used to live here, Chris. You know we're a well-behaved utopian society.
Sure.
What's going on, Chris? I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Let me ask you a question about this Trinity River thing, because one of the headlines that struck me when I looked at Maven's notebook, again, encouraging all of our listeners to do that at mavensnotebook.com. But what's it say here? 250-foot wall of water on the Trinity River. Still a big threat.
Yeah, this was put out by one of our environmental groups that tends to take a critical eye to a lot of California water management stuff. And they do talk about how Trinity Dam could possibly be overtopped, like the spillway can't move enough water out of it if they get a whole lot of water into it. And, you know, how much of a threat is this? It's not, you know, it's really hard to say. I think in these days of where we're getting these more extreme precipitation events, it is not really out of the question that some dams may become overwhelmed. I think this is an issue really not just for Trinity Dam, but really for dams all across the United States.
Yeah.
We really need to be upgrading these dams, and we're really not putting that money to it. And with these new kinds of storms that we're getting, with this extreme rainfall, and it happens not only here in California, but it's happening in other places too, where just tremendous amounts of water get dumped. The possibility that it might overwhelm a dam is really quite, that's a real thing. And it actually happened in Michigan a few years ago. Dam safety
participant is now joining.
Dam safety is a real issue, and it's one that we really don't even talk about on the federal level, and we really should be. It's the dams are just part of a lot of infrastructure that really needs to be upgraded to be, so that it can continue to be safe and reliable. Not only dams, but bridges and things that are getting towards the end of their useful life. And unfortunately, that's not something that really gets a lot of attention in, certainly not these days in Washington, D.C. Fixing dams is expensive, but what is the alternative?
Well, Chris, let me ask you a question. So when they build these dams and they talk about stuff like we're talking about, isn't there a way that they can, without getting the overflow, into that big wave thing, can't they siphon some of that water off into some vehicles or anything and send them away to dump somewhere else?
Generally, I'm going to say siphoning water out of the reservoir at a vehicular rate, like big trucks, was probably generally that's not going to be enough. They have to be engineered so that they have some criteria for that, so that you can dump water when you need to dump water. You never want water overtopping the dam. That's generally a very bad thing. So there's there are standards for that, but we have been building things here in the United States for 200 years now. And there's a lot of dams out there that were built by whoever. They've been abandoned, and they just sort of sit there on the landscape. and nobody does anything about them. And those are the kind of things that can, that can go. So, it's it's an issue, and it's a real gnarly one, because there's federal dams, the state dams, and there's even local dams that were built, small ones that are built that nobody maintains, and they build communities below them, and nothing much is happening with them. So it's going to become an issue as these extreme precipitation events continue to occur.
Yeah. What do you think? Let me ask you about the desal thing, because I know it's only a little bit into our segment here, but boy, yesterday it was Edward Ring wrote a small article, and I think you know who Edward is. He's one of the California Policy Center guys, directors, I think.
Yeah.
All this challenge that's been happening with the desal plant in Huntington Beach, and this guy wrote this pretty good article. I read it a couple of times because I was so interested in it, about how we're getting to a little bit better cost parity with the cost of desal, especially when you put in the carbon neutrality and the energy cost for it. I don't know if you had a chance to read that at all, Chris, but
well, I did, and yeah, Edward Ring is a conservative columnist, opinion writer that I got his permission to start including him, publishing him onto my blog, because I want to broaden the viewpoint of what I am publishing on the blog. So I asked Edward, and he graciously agreed. And I'll tell you the thing that I like about Edward. I don't always agree with what he says, but he shows his work. He tells you how he gets to the opinions that he gets, and he does so without any snark. And I so appreciate that. It is possible to, make your points and not insult anybody in the process. So I'm happy to have Edward Ring and his commentary on my blog. Now, I do agree with the theory that desalination is becoming less expensive and less environmentally impactful as we go through time, and it will only continue to do so. There are quite a number of technologies on a small scale, that like zero waste and stuff, that may soon become large scale and be able to do a lot more with a lot less. And those technologies are coming. I don't necessarily agree with where he gets his cost per acre feet. I don't think that the Delta Tunnel is going to cost $60,000 per acre foot. That's a little. I think that's a little overestimated.
Yeah, that's pretty steep.
Yeah, but I do agree that desalination is coming down on cost and will continue to do so. And I do believe that we will get better at making it less environmentally impactful. And those technologies are coming. But it is difficult, as he points out, it is difficult to build a desalination plant in California. It just is, because we really do fuss over our coast, and you will always have opposition to it wherever you are in California. But I think as time goes on, technology improves, and water, if it continues to become more scarce, I do think we'll see more communities looking at desalination. And for some communities, it will probably make sense.
Also, also in the oil industry, they're looking at produced water from the fracking process.
Yeah, and we've there's been a number of of studies on that seem to suggest that there really isn't a problem with using that water on crops. But again, there's just a lot of opposition to that. So again, I think some people don't like the idea that water is going into their food, being used to water their food. I don't know. Like I said, we have studies that say it's not a big deal, but we're also getting better at detecting contaminants, and we're finding that there's a lot of other contaminants hanging out in the food supply.
Well, I know both of you remember years ago in Orange County when they started talking about toilet to tap, and they had to change the name because people didn't like that. But yeah, you look at those plants. They have one there. There's one in Los Angeles County. And
they're trying to build one. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're delivering all this water as drinkable water. And they even take a tour. You can take a tour on some of these places. Excuse me. And at the end
Orange
of the tour,
Orange County, they're really a leader in this, and they were actually able to do it because as Orange County was growing, they just built that plant, and they had some outreach, but certainly they did, and they got the residents there at the time on board, and then they just kept building it. And once it's already there, people just seem to have accepted it. Now they clean up their groundwater and they put it they use it to recharge the aquifer. So it kind of goes into this other place first before it gets into the distribution center. Right. What they're working on now, the State Water Board just approved what's called direct potable reuse, where they could, clean up that water and put it directly in the drinking water system. And they're very excited about having passed these regulations. And I do imagine that we'll see some places doing that are really, really tight on water and have the money to do it. But it's very expensive water.
Yeah. Well, the next thing they're going to look at is the fluoride in the water. There's been some studies out that, putting it in the drinking water, potable water, that especially for children, there's more fluoride in toothpaste than they're doing into the water, but they said the combination of both can just raise it to a different level, which they don't believe is good. So that's probably going to be the next argument that they go through or challenge that they're going to have.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say about the fluoride debate.
That's okay.
Well, I would have to look at it to make a comment, and I don't even. I have to admit I haven't. I know that our new Health and Human Services Secretary is very anti-fluoride, and some communities don't want it. I don't know. Don't really have much to say.
No. Well, going back to your story about the fires and water and things, I heard that there's a Tahoe Water Company saw an insurance rate rise of 200%.
Yeah.
Despite they never filed the claim, and that's going to really scare the heck out of them.
Yeah, the problem is, insurance has to be profitable. I mean, these insurance companies just can't, print the money in the back room and hand it out. And unfortunately, I think we're going to see a lot of adjustments, especially for property insurance. I remember a few years ago, I heard that at a big time insurance conference, a conference of the insurance companies that insure the other insurance companies. they're kind of layered up on top. They said a world at 1.5 degrees centigrade hotter, that scale that they're using over industrial times. He says that is an uninsurable world. and we're not at that 1.5, not consistently, although we get up there at certain times, but we're not quite there yet. But we could be seeing that point in time where things start taking off, and it's I don't know. It's going to be very hard for the insurance company.
I know. It's terrible. But going back, I want to give Chris Davey an opportunity because he's the avid fisherman, angler, I guess is the right term. You had a story about salmon that almost had a happy ending.
Yeah, Chris Austin.
Well, yeah, there was that. I have to admit that was a long essay I didn't read.
It was great though, Chris. I enjoyed it the heck out of it. So yeah.
But I tell you what is the good news this week is that the coho salmon on the Mendocino coast. They got an amazing return of salmon, and they've been doing a lot of work in that watershed. So there is good news for salmon in that stream. So,
but you can't touch them right now, correct? They're still on a do not touch basis.
Well, yeah, they're probably going to close the season again because it's an anomaly that this particular bunch of salmon are doing well, because generally all the numbers are in general down. So.
Well, that's good.
No, that's bad.
I know.
We don't want small numbers. We want big numbers of salmon returning.
Absolutely. I'm just kidding, because Chris likes to go fishing, and I know he's waiting for the season to open that he can go do that again. So, but there's other places he goes, right, Chris?
Oh yeah, all over the Southern California. My favorite is the Eastern Sierra, up around Mono and June Lake Loop, Mammoth area, Lone Pine, Big Pine, Independence, all that area.
We're going to have to post
one of the most beautiful places in California, the Eastern Sierra.
You are so right, Chris. The Owens Valley has got to be one of the most beautiful spots on the planet. I love it.
We're going to have to post. We're going to have to post some of those pictures I have of Chris in a kayak fishing. And
I have plenty.
And you have some with your brother and stuff, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up to our commercial break, but for all your listeners, please go to Chris Austin's website. It's called mavensnotebook.com. You can get all the latest update daily on what's happening in water, and it's a great read. Both Chris Davey and I read them every single morning. It's on our computers as we wake up in the morning, and we appreciate that. You can also become a sponsor of that as well. That would be greatly appreciated to her. And again, I don't know how she does 90 hours of work and sleep and go to speeches and everything else that she does, but she's an amazing woman, and we appreciate that she's part of our show. So, Chris, thank you very much. Stay dry, and hope you have a great weekend.
All right. Good night. Good evening, everyone.
Have a great week, Chris.
Yep. All right, we're going to take a short break with our sponsors, two of our sponsors, and we'll be right back with our special guest, which should be a great conversation. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Water is one of the biggest expenses for communities, HOAs, universities, golf courses, and resorts. So keeping those costs under control, especially when rates are increasing while water supplies are being reduced, are often essential to a customer's survival. Managing water requires multiple skills, which is why it's been complicated and difficult until now. AquaTrack brings multiple skills and technologies together to help large system users conserve outdoor water and improve the health of their landscapes. AquaTrack's professionals are certified landscape water managers and certified landscape irrigation auditors. The company offers audit services, upgrade advice, technical expertise, and water use monitoring. We already manage irrigation water for the largest homeowner associations in Arizona, and we're prepared to bring our knowledge and experience to help others, including landscapers and designers. Give us a call and hear how AquaTrack saved one HOA some 430 million gallons of water and $200,000 in annual water expenses. AquaTrack is Arizona-based, and you can reach us at 623-594-8689. That's 623-594-8689.
most time-saving tools I found for my customers is our app and our e-commerce feature. So customers actually have the ability to view all of their quotes in one place. If you contact your Site One seller, you'll be able to log into your account and see all your quotes in one place. And instead of jumping on the phone or waiting for your seller to call you back, you can approve it right from the website, and it will send a message to your sales rep to get it on order and reserve the material. Customers can learn more about these tools at their Site One branch, from their local seller, from their local CX specialist, and from SiteOne.com, or by downloading the Site One app.
All right, welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone. I'm Rob Starr along with Mr. Chris Davey. I hope everybody's having a great afternoon. We have something unusual today. We have a gentleman named Mike Hammond, and he's the president, CEO of a company that he launched 5 years ago, and he makes a product called Signal Relief. And it's a pain management patch. And I know a lot of you are thinking, well, we talk about water all day, so why would we have a pain management patch on the show? Well, a couple of weeks back, those of you who listen, follow the show, we had a gentleman named Professor Dr. George Pollack, and he was from Washington State University. And he gave a conversation to us about a thing that he's discovered and worked on, and it's called the exclusionary zone with water. And he has evidence that the water inside your muscles, inside your body, carries a negative charge. Okay? And he said there can be a lot of things that can happen if you put a positive charge to that. And so I happened to be watching television one night, and I saw this advertisement. I saw it actually a couple of times, and it's called Signal Relief. And I was thinking about it as an engineer. I looked online. It's told that there's no electric circuits in it. There's no power, no batteries, no nothing. And I just got a sample to look at today, and I didn't have time because it came late to get it down to the studio so they could broadcast it in video, but we'll post it on one of the shows so you can see that. But anyway, he has this device or this patch that's 100% drug-free, clinically tested. It's easy to use and lasts 1 year, and it's guaranteed. And I thought it was such an interesting product that maybe it relates, obviously, maybe to water, but we'll find out. I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Hammond. Welcome to the Water Zone, sir.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. We can hear you now. We appreciate this. So Tell us a little about, because I know you have other businesses that you do, and we don't have to get into that this time, but I probably want to have you back on one of your other businesses that you own, like landscaping, and talk about water and some other things more in depth. But can you tell us more about what this patch is and what made you think about even doing something like this? Because when I look at the other things that you do in your other businesses, I don't see how it related to this, but obviously you're a guy who thinks. You got great commercials, and I want to understand a little bit more about it and let our listeners say, does it have anything to do with water?
Well, it has everything to do with it. I mean, the body's 60% water, right? And and I come from the communication world, and so I'm going to start probably where it comes from and then tell you what it has to do with the body, why it works.
Great.
But water is very conductive to electrical signals, and our body actually functions electronically. I mean, that's how every single cell communicates to every cell, is through electrical signals. And so I don't believe that God made a mistake. I think he knew exactly what he was doing when he made us, and I think there's a reason that 60% of our body is made of water and that we work electrical. Yep. And so what's cool about the patch is we actually, so I one of my first companies, I'm a serial entrepreneur, as you probably noticed. I have a lot of companies.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And one of the first ones I did was a telecommunications and it was television and cell phone retailer, actually, and we became one of the largest retailers in the United States. In 2012, I got purchased by Dish Network, and at that point in time, I had a buddy one of my best friends from MBA school over at the U was a Marriott. He's actually one of the Marriott, J.W. Marriott's grandson or brother's grandson or something, but it's that same family.
Mm-hmm.
And he was running basically it's called Spectre Symbol, but they create tech. And he told me that I wanted to come check something out, that I might want to invest in it. So I went down to his shop and I met two inventors that were actually they were creating. So back in 2012, when a team of Navy SEALs got deployed, one of them had to carry a 5-foot antenna and like a backpack full of an 80-pound backpack of batteries to be able to communicate, right?
Yep.
And these guys were trying to shrink that down, and they did that by shifting things from working on magnetic fields to electrical, and they got that antenna down to the size of a credit card. And so I invested with them originally, and over the next 3 or 4 years, we started to figure out, as we were putting these patches on the soldiers' bodies, we were picking up signals, but we hadn't plugged into a radio yet. And we finally figured out that that our antennas were interacting with the body's electrical system. And so once we figured that out and found out that the body kind of worked on similar electrical signals, we kept tweaking that tech until we came up with what we have right now, which is a signal release patch. And it's awesome because it basically, in a nutshell, I'm trying to the easiest way to describe it, electrical signals and energy follow the path of least resistance. So when you hurt your hand, your nerves fire, right? They just start going crazy, and they create an electrical signal that then travels up your neural pathways to your brain. That's the path of least resistance. When a house actually gets hit by lightning, it burns up unless you have a lightning rod. Why? Because lightning will go right to the lightning rod and into the ground. It will follow that path of least resistance. When your body fires off the signal for pain and it hits our patch, the path of least resistance for that energy is, instead of going all the way up to the brain, it's slowed down enough that most of it jumps out into the patch, and the rest of it's slowed down enough that you all of a sudden don't feel pain. Mm-hmm. And so we're able to, without drugs or anything, make it manageable. I wouldn't say that we're a cure for anything, right? But we make it, people are able to basically just use the patch and not have to take all the opioids and everything else that they're used to having to take to live a normal life. And so for a lot of people, we've been able to give them their life back with no side effects. And a lot of the reason that it does work is because our body is electrical, and the water inside that body is what makes it all work.
Well,
it's interesting, but if you think about when you're dehydrated, that's actually, pain's created just from dehydration alone. Dehydration causes pain.
Mm. Well, it interests me a lot. My background's engineering, electronic, and physics, and I'm also a ham radio, so I understand the stuff with the antennas. I deal with that with my systems that I have here. But I'm going to bring Chris in, our co-host. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering again, Mike Hammond, I'm Chris Davey. Welcome to the Water Zone, buddy. Thanks very much for coming on. But you mentioned 10 years ago, you started a serial entrepreneur and you started looking at different things. How long has signal relief been on your radar? Was that 10 years ago, or was that more recently?
No, it was probably 2018 when it got on our radar, and then I started the company and created the first versions of our patch in late 2019 is when we hit the market. But we've had a lot of figuring out to do. I mean, just with again, I'm not. You noticed in my background, I'm not in the medical field, right? And so I've had to hire a lot of experts and a lot of lawyers and figure out all the things we're not allowed to do and what we are allowed to do, and what kind of tests we needed to be legit. And it's just taken us a while, but we really started hitting the market heavy about a year ago. It's really started to take off. It's just taken us a while to get everything in order, get the necessary clinicals and testing done, and make sure that it was safe.
Well, Mike, maybe can we get into a little bit more of the details here? Because I manage the text blog as they're coming in. We used to have callers dial in, but we don't do that anymore. Instead, people prefer to text to make their comments on the blog. But so a couple of people asking here: Does Signal Relief actually block the pain, or does it stop pain completely?
It's interesting. If you go on our website, we posted our clinicals there, but you'll notice that 90% of people, or 85%, I think, of all of our patients had a 60%, an average of a 60% decline. Some of them, it does actually go away. It just depends on how much of that signal we can basically slow down and intercept, right? And so, what's crazy is what I love most about it is what it does for the people who thought they had no options. I'm going to give you an example. It was just, to me, was so cool. So I have my best friend from high school. When we were 22 years old, he was working at a Yellowstone logging, like a logging company, and he literally had his leg sucked into a stump grinder, and he lost his leg to his knee. And so he actually, he just got his NP. He's in the medical industry, but he's done everything he could to try and get rid of the pain, and he couldn't, right? And I think in 2019, he had just had a pain pump installed that was $100,000, and it pumps morphine into your spine, and that's what got him through, but it still hurt. He still wasn't doing a whole lot because it hurt all the time. And he was one of the first people I ever used the patch on, and I had no idea how it would work or what would happen. But I saw him at a football game, and I talked him into coming to my office to try it out. And I put that patch on him, and in 10 seconds, his shoulders were shaking, and he looks up, and tears are coming down both eyes. And at first, I'm thinking, like, what's going on? Is he hurting? And he's like, dude, I don't feel any pain. It's the first time in 16 years that he didn't feel pain.
Wow, what a story.
And what was more impactful for it is when I turned around, because I was excited. His kids were behind me. He had two twins that were in, I think at the time they were in 7th or 8th grade. And then he had a little kid, and all three of them were crying because they'd never seen their dad not hurt. And you just realize what pain does to a family. What it does to a human. How much of their life literally gets shut off when that's the only thing they can actually focus on. And what's cool about this, and again, I think everything has its place, right? But I love it when this patch works for people who haven't found another solution. Like, it seems to really, for some of the people that have some of the worst things they're dealing with, this sometimes works, and that's the coolest thing to watch. And so we had something similar with a veteran. I saw a veteran at Walmart, and he was asking for money. So I'm in Idaho. I'm 40 minutes from Yellowstone. We're in that Jackson Hole, Yellowstone area.
Yeah.
And he was actually trying to get money to get to the vet hospital in Montana. And he was asking for money, and I saw someone had $20 out their window, and he got up to go get the $20, and he took 2 steps and then just stopped walking and sat back down. It hurt him too bad. I could tell it was hurting him so bad he couldn't stand up. So I was like, no way. I got to figure this out. So I ran back to my office. I got my video girl. I grabbed 2 patches, and I told everyone in my office they should come with me because I wanted them to experience or see this in real life, because you only hear stories, but I wanted them to see it. So we actually have this one on video, but we went up to this homeless vet, put the patch on his leg, and at first I asked him, how you doing, da-da-da. He had lost his leg in a submarine. I can't remember if it was like something had hit the submarine, but there was an accident on the submarine, and he lost his leg. And he said that he hadn't slept for 30 years. He's like, I haven't even slept one night in 30 years. And I was like, hey, I got something for you. I want you to try out. I'm going to put this on your leg. So I put it on his leg, right on his knee. And he's like, no, you don't understand. Nothing will take this away. And then all of a sudden he looks at me and he's like, that's crazy. It doesn't hurt. And I go, why don't you walk? Try to walk. He goes, no, man, you don't get it. I can't walk. And I go, will you please just try? And he stands up and he takes 3 steps forward, turns around, 2 steps back, and then he just looks at me and tears come down both eyes and he salutes me. And I was like, no way. And we got it on video. That's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
So we go back to the office, and I'm like, that's so awesome. And our marketing guy's like, did you get a disclaimer or whatever so we can use it? And I'm like, no. So I'm like, shoot, we got to go back. So we run back there, and this guy's running around his chair. And I get over there, and I'm like, hey, man, how you doing? And he looks at me, has the biggest smile, and he's like, this is crazy. Did you see this? I can run around my chair. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I just realized we just changed that guy's life. And sometimes we look at these homeless vets, and we're like, dude, poor guys, it's PTSD, something's wrong with them. But I realized right there, that guy was homeless because he was in so much pain that he couldn't function anymore. That's why he was homeless. And to see something take that away that quick, and we're not putting anything into the body. There's no side effects. We have 0 side effects so far that we know of.
Yeah.
And it's just one of the coolest things. So I think for the first time in my life, I'm actually, like, this is the business that doesn't feel like a job. Like, it feels like a mission. And we just wake up every day, and it's like, it is the coolest thing to be part of because we're changing lives. And I think that that's probably why Signal is my favorite company, is just because we're changing lives.
Well, I
never realized how much,
Yeah, that's a terrific story, and Rob's going to ask you a little bit more about vets in just a minute. But I kind of want to go back to a comment you made about how you've been talking to patients or people that have tried the patch, and obviously you've done a lot of research. You've checked with those guys, and we know that there's people with pain all the time, right, or chronic pain, if you will, and then people who get hurt and they have temporary pain, right? So is the relief patch good for both of those scenarios? Mike?
Dude, it is. It is actually, it is good for both those scenarios, right? But the ones that, my favorite ones are the chronic ones because they're the ones that have given up, have no hope, and don't think they're ever going to have life without it at that point. And so watching how it affects them is by far probably my favorite, but it definitely helps both. In fact, one of the cool things when you slow down the pain frequency, you actually get rid of inflammation, and the body doesn't heal till inflammation's usually out of the area. And so we're finding just with sports injuries and stuff like that, we did a test with soccer team in Mexico, and then BYU baseball team did a trial with us for 1 year, and they were floored how much faster their athletes were healing. It was almost twice as fast. They were getting better just because the inflammation's gone so quick. When we get rid of the signal, like a sprained ankle, the inflammation could be gone within 15 minutes instead of 2 days. And then the body starts healing itself quicker at that point. And so there's a lot of really, really cool things that we're in the middle of researching and figuring out with the patch. We're learning new stuff every day. It does one thing, right? But that one thing, so it positively affects so many different aspects of someone's life. So we're still learning a lot about it. It's pretty cool.
Well, I understand that you're going to launch a signal relief project, which is supposed to be a nonprofit dedicated to U.S. vets. That's awesome, and bless you for doing that because they need help. And we spend money. Our country spends a lot. I won't get political, but we spend lots of money on lots of things. But we need to spend more money on people who put their lives on the line. And so just for me saying it to you, and I'm sure, Chris, thank you very much for doing that. We appreciate that. Technical question that you don't have to go into super detail because I don't want to take anything away from your technology. And I'm not a competitor to you anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. Does any spurious radiation affect this at all? For example, if I was walking around with my 2-meter walkie-talkie or in the park transmitting stuff on a lower frequency, could that interfere with that or not?
We have not found it to, but that's not something we've done a ton of testing on either. So I wouldn't know. Honestly, I'd have to say I'm not quite sure, but we haven't been asked that question before. And
I know
that's not something that we've done a ton of testing on.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, I'm with the Toro company, and I handle strategic technologies and things. And I remember when they started going into smart irrigation controllers, and all these new companies showed up in the market, and a lot of them didn't go get tested, meaning they have product that works with microprocessors. You need to go through FCC and UL and all of that. And there was one company, I won't mention who they are, they had a little problem. They never went and got their product tested at the FCC. And so if you had a pacemaker in you and you were by your, happened to be near the microwave oven and you turn that on, it would do a dump on this person who had the heart problem. And so those are things. I mean, we have a whole lab at our place that we go through all this stuff to make sure that we qualify for all the UL and FCC and all of that. But I was just curious if anybody walked around with a transmitter, would that interfere with that, since it's directly coupled to your body? So I don't know the answer to that. But
our policy has always been consult with your doctor and get his opinion. That's not something that I have a lot of people who definitely have those that are using it, but it's not something that we recommend doing. We just tell people to go talk to their doctor, right?
And that's the right thing, and that's absolutely the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So you enjoy what you're doing, and like I said, your product interests me so much. After, again, it was a couple of weeks after this other gentleman that we had talking about the exclusionary zone, and he calls it Easy Water. And he wrote a book about it. He actually has another one coming out. I don't remember the name, the title of the next one. Do you know, Chris?
I can't remember. It's coming out in April, though.
Yeah, but then I saw your commercials, and I'm sitting back. This is really interesting. I want to know more about it. And so we had to hunt you down, and I appreciate that you're on the show. Now, you guys, everything's American made. I take it, right?
We are. We make everything right in Utah, actually, at the Marriott factory there. It's at the Spectre Symbol factory. So, and so they're all made here in the U.S. And yeah, it's a pretty cool product, actually. We have some stuff we're actually working on right now that I think is awesome. One of the things we found we could actually put the tech on was we figured out, obviously, that it helps athletes out a ton. So one of the things we're looking into is actually creating one that's like on some sort of a tape, like what you have KT tape for athletes. Right. That also would have our tech on it, so that which would be phenomenal for them. And so we've got a lot of really cool stuff. You should see what it does for animals. Like, it's insane. Wow. We had when we first launched our Jovi patch, which is for women's menstrual cramps.
Yeah.
The Jovi patch was launched on Instagram, and so we had all these videos coming back to us all of a sudden from women. And one of the women's like, hey, have you ever tried this on your dog? Check this out. And she had this dog that couldn't walk up the stairs. And then she had a bandage, and she had bandaged our patch on the back of the dog, and the dog was running up and down the stairs. And we were like, oh, my gosh, I mean, it's out of that. And so we started using it actually on I have a bunch of horses. I'm a total I don't know if you'd call me a real cowboy because I don't have a ranch, but I have horses and like to do a lot with them. And I had a horse that hadn't got up for 3 days, and it was foundering, and I'd put the patch on its elbows where the holes had come out on its, basically at the knee joint on the back legs. And within 2 hours, that horse had jumped up and started walking around again. It was crazy.
Wow, amazing.
So, it's pretty cool, but if it works on us, it should work on them, right?
Yeah. Hey, on the patches, I like I said, I just received the package this afternoon. So you put tape. Do you have to use special tape to put these, to fasten them on, I guess is the right word here?
No, we when you order the patch, you get adhesives that we have with them that you can order more of. Those adhesives are basically the same thing they use with like an IV.
Oh, okay.
They're made by 3M, and it's basically you can use that on the body, and people usually don't have issues. In fact, if we've had any side effects at all, it's been allergic reactions to adhesive, right? So we try to do the best we can, but you can apply it to your body anyway. I mean, it can go on the outside of your clothes and still work. In fact, my friend that uses it, my buddy Matt, that uses it on his prosthetic, he puts it on the outside of his prosthetic.
Wow.
And it works from there because it's not, again, we're not putting anything into the body. We're reacting to the electrical field that your body actually communicates on, right? So it's just it's an antenna of sorts that's interacting with your body's electrical field. So the patch just needs to be inside of your electrical field and close to where the pain is.
Now you sell them in different quantities or different packaging, or how does somebody they obviously go to your
we have
website?
Different quantities you get, because you can use more than one, right? So we have people that have, I mean, older people, like there's a lot of things hurting. And so a lot of them actually want to buy some of them buy packs of 5 for them and their wife, right? And so the more that they buy, we discount the patch so it's more and more affordable. But you can wear multiple of these at the same time for different things, and it's incredible how much it works. So,
I'm sure you work with a lot of...
Another big one is migraines. Yeah. People use them for headaches all the time, and it's crazy how many of those they actually work for. So
I guess I'm sure a lot of people would rather do what you have versus taking Botox shots to help relieve that.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm sure you've worked with some credentialed doctors over the period of time, and what do they tell you about signal relief? How do they react to it?
So it's, what's interesting is we have some really good doctors in the United States. I mean, the media always, you'd think we're all corrupt, right? But even inside of we've met with FDA people. There's some really good people who care about people. And one of the things that's interesting, we have one of the top cancer surgeons in the U.S. working with us, and one of the top, he's a neurosurgeon. And so he's used to basically implanting things into people's spine to try and decrease pain. Mm-hmm. Done over 10,000 surgeries. And we haven't sought these guys out. They seek us out. So they hear about the product, they wear it, they use it one time, and then all of a sudden my phone's getting blown up, and it's Beth Dupree, and she's like, hey, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. How do I get involved? And Dr. Avery, who is on one of our newest commercials you've seen, he just loved it. And then he sought us out and was like, dude, this is – and what's crazy is these guys have seen the negative effects that some medications have had on people's lives when it gets overdone or they get addicted and those type of things. And so to have a solution that people could actually use, and again, sometimes you have to have those other things, but in the instances where they can just use a patch and not have to go there, that's a big deal for these doctors. Because,
absolutely.
Again, they want to heal people, right?
Yeah.
And they don't want to worry about the negative effects of what they're doing on that person's life. And so, yeah, we have a lot of doctors working with us right now, and they're seeking us out like crazy, and they're awesome.
Well, how do people find out more about your product? Where can they go?
You just go to signalrelief.com, and we have everything there. We have our white papers, our research. We have videos from our doctors there. There should be a lot there. And then we have a customer service line that you can actually email or call, and they answer any questions that you have. If you can actually talk to them about what you're experiencing, and they can walk you through whether the patch could be useful or not.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate you coming on the Water Zone. I'd like to talk to you about some of the other things that you got going and have you back on the show for those, if that's possible. But no, this. I tell you, I was so excited to finally make contact with somebody who knew you that we could get you on the show, and we do appreciate it. I'm excited about looking at this because, like I said, you know my background, and that's something I think is really, really neat.
Yeah.
So Mike, thank you very much for joining us today. I stick around after the show, after it ends, and we can talk for a few seconds, and that'll be great. And you're invited back here anytime you want to talk more about your product, and it got me convinced, so I appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Everybody.
Thanks, Chris and Rob.
Yeah, just stick around. And for all our listeners, one thing Chris and I always want to tell you that you must do is please help keep our planet
blue.
If you like green, you got to have blue. So enjoy your week. If you're in the rain, enjoy the rain. If you're in a nice sunny place, enjoy that as well. We'll talk to you next week.
We're tuning in.
NBC News on KC.